Hello and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Kristen and I'm just your average everyday Catholic sharing about life. And so recently I went to Peru with my husband. He's Peruvian, and we had a beautiful time and saw lots of family and even some friends who were visiting at the same time. But whenever I travel outside of the country, I always reflect on abundance and how others live differently than I do. And before I get into this, please know that Peru is a beautiful country. Please visit if you do have the opportunity. If you stay near the cities, especially Lima, for example, there's a lot of beautiful things to see and do there. Cusco, Machu Picchu, and many Peruvians live very well, very comfortably. Before I get into this video, I also want to mention that I know that many Americans live in poverty. I read that Alabama has the most people living in poverty. I believe it was 22%. New Mexico was second, but New Mexico and the other states with people living in poverty was either 20% or lower than 20% of people living in poverty. So the majority of Americans do live fairly comfortably, but I am aware of the reality that many Americans do live in poverty. So in Peru, my husband and I love to go to this very small beach town. It is not a town for American tourists. It is a very small town away from the city, and people live very simply there. We stayed in a beautiful home, his family home, but one night was a little uncomfortable. First, it was very hot. In that town in the summer, it's actually very cool in the evenings because of the breeze from the ocean, and the water is so cold because it's water from Antarctica. It's freezing. I could only go in there for about 10 minutes. Anyway, so at night, it is very cool, very comfortable, and the people usually leave windows open and sleep very comfortably. However, my husband and I are very careful about getting bitten by insects when we're in South America. We are trying to conceive, and we just have more peace of mind when we take precautions to not get bitten. And Peruvians often don't have screens like we do in the US. They just leave their windows wide open. They're just very in touch with nature. And so we were sleeping with our windows and our bedroom door completely closed, so it got very hot. Thankfully, later we found a net and we wrapped it around our window, so we slept very comfortably for the rest of this trip. But before we found that net, we were sleeping in a very hot bedroom. Oh yeah, Peruvians generally don't have air conditioning in their homes. They do have air conditioning, you know, in the airport and malls, places like that, but they are just used to not having air conditioning. And my husband would love to buy air conditioning units for all of his family members, but he actually has family members that don't want air conditioning. They think it'll give you a cold or something. Anyway, so it was very hot, and the roof above us was a new roof. There's some construction going on at this house, and that night this town got a lot of rain. This town normally doesn't get that amount of rain, a sign of global warming. It was so much rain that they had mudslides. They call it a huaico, which is a Quechuan word, and it affected a lot of their roads and bridges. So all of this rain caused a lot of problems for this city. And with this new roof, I don't know if something was overlooked, but that night when my husband and I were sleeping, it was very hot and the roof started leaking in two spots, one of which was right over the middle of my bed. So again, this was completely unexpected because this area doesn't even get a lot of rain like this. In addition to the heat and the leaking over the middle of my bed, my husband was snoring so loudly because he was just getting accustomed to the new climate. So I got up in the middle of the night to get a couple of pots, and I put a pot in the middle of my bed, and sort of squeezed to one side of my bed. And I'm laying there in this super uncomfortable heat, listening to my husband snore so loudly, squished to one side of my bed because of the leak in the middle, and the drops from the roof dropping into the pot was so loud, and each drop would splash me a little bit with water. So I was laying there and I was about to get irritable. I felt myself starting to get irritable. And then I stopped myself because I had recently prayed a sorrowful rosary, and I thought about all that Jesus went through for me: the scourging at the pillar, the crown of thorns, the crucifixion. How can I complain or be irritable for a little noise, a little water, and some heat? Thankfully, my husband woke up and we actually moved my bed so that I could sleep a little bit more comfortably and not have the leak right in the middle of my bed. We were just in separate beds because that was the room that was available. Anyway, I just wanted to share that story because I'm not rich by any means, but I'm an American. I was born in America. I am accustomed to heat, air conditioning, fluffy, clean, new carpet, perfect roofs that don't leak, clean running water available at all times. In Peru, in this small beach town, almost every day we said, no hay luz, no hay agua. We either didn't have power or water, just for small pockets of time. It was a comfortable trip. We always had power and water for the majority of each day, but there would be blocks of time when we wouldn't, maybe because of the unexpected rain, I'm not sure. But I just wanted to share this as a reminder that it's so important for us to always cultivate gratitude in our hearts. St. Paul begins several of his letters with a prayer of thanksgiving, and it's important for us to remember that everything we have is a gift from God. The things we have are not because of our effort, of our accomplishments. They are all gifts from God. So gratitude and cultivating gratitude is so good for us, because the more we increase gratitude in our hearts, the more we decrease pride. And even the Eucharist, the source and summit of our faith, is Greek for to give thanks. This world tells us to focus on what we don't have and to strive to get what we don't have. But as Catholics, we need to thank God regularly for what we do have. And again, I had a very lovely, comfortable trip. I don't mean to dissuade anyone from going to Peru. Whenever I travel outside of the US, I like to imagine myself living in that place because my husband and I are open to living wherever, and his work might take us to a new place. So I always like to mentally prepare for living there. And moving to Peru would be very hard at first. I am just used to the beauty of the US, the air conditioning. People just live a little differently in Peru, more simply. Many Peruvians, not all. There are very wealthy Peruvians who don't live simply. I am just constantly working on cultivating gratitude in my heart. I know that will destroy pride and will also bring me joy. It's just a beautiful spiritual exercise to cultivate gratitude and thank God for all that He's given us. I hope you enjoyed this video. My favorite part of my trip to Peru, I really want to share later in the year, so definitely subscribe so you can watch that video when it comes out. But if you are traveling to Peru anytime soon, just email me and I will tell you my favorite part of Peru, something that I highly recommend that you go see if you go to Peru. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and please remember to thank God for all of your blessings today and every day. Bye.